Ask for motion to enter open session.
So moved.
A second. All those in favor?
Yes.
So, in executive session, we received legal advice regarding open meetings law, teacher termination, and security. I'm going to ask you now to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to ask everyone to remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of Leonard Chase, who was a 8-year member of this school committee who died recently. Thank you. So welcome. Am I on? Okay. So welcome to our November 26th Tiverton School Committee meeting. First, I'd also like to welcome our new Director of Finance and Administration, Ms. Amy Roderick. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We're looking forward to working with you. And now I'm going to ask for a motion to, is anyone signed up for open forum? Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Dr. Sanchioni.
Under appointments, we have Assistant Principal Secretary at the high school, Kim Paquette. We have a part-time lunch recess aide at Ranger, Mariah Flores. And we have boys basketball coach at the middle school, Malik Hanley and Dylan Sheridan.
Okay. And we also have a open homeschooling request as well. Do we have to mention that? No?
No?
We don't have it?
I'm happy to speak to it if there's a question.
Okay. No.
What's on
sorry.
the agenda? That's all he's asking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to ask for a motion to move up. What item am I
I'd like to
on?
make a motion to move up item 14A, safety plan.
That's what it was. Thank you. All those in favor? Dr. Sanchioni?
Okay, we're going to bring a presentation for you up on the screen there. While we're waiting for that, though, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask our principal from the high school. We're fortunate to have our 2 student representatives tonight, so I'd ask Mr. Principal Ashley to introduce them and welcome them.
By all means.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sagan. So there's a great pleasure to first welcome back again, now as a senior, Ms. Abby Poland. So welcome, Abby. Thank you for coming. And our new student representative as a junior, Ms. Shauna Eureka. So welcome. And so they'll be attending us on the regular meetings. And I did let them know that if meetings run a little long, that it is okay if they need to step out for homework or other activities. And tonight's actually one of those nights, so they'll be here for a little while longer.
Well, welcome. I've been asking where you were, and I'm so glad you came.
So welcome, ladies.
And please feel free to chime in and join the conversation.
Yes, that's actually, I second that. Please, we look forward to hearing your perspective, and please do not ever hesitate to ask questions and sort of wave me down if I'm not seeing your eagerness to do so. So anyway, Dr. Sanchioni.
So we have a presentation to you about school safety and the things we do to keep our schools safe, both for our students and for our staff, because we know this is priority one for all administrators to make sure our schools are the safest they possibly can be, because we know no significant learning can take place unless our staff and our students do feel secure within our facilities. So we have multiple initiatives that we put in place to sort of accomplish that goal, and we'll speak to you some of the generic initiatives to start. Many of these you're aware of. But we require all of our staff before the beginning of every school year to complete the online ALICE module to give them training in the ALICE protocols. Every school conducts lockdown drills and evacuation drills. We're required by RIDE to do that, and we meet our quota for all those type of drills that we have to have. You're aware that all of our schools have video surveillance. All of our schools will or currently have a key fob system, which is a safer way of entering our buildings and exiting our buildings. All schools have a safe room. A couple of those rooms are being finalized now. However, those rooms allow our principals to conduct, in the time of an emergency, to go to a safe place and be able to take control of the school and to move forward. I'm sure that's going to come back on momentarily. And the second bullet from the bottom coming up where I left off there, as you know, we've implemented that online reporting form, and that reporting form has actually come invaluable to us. We've had several student reports of information where students are feeling unsafe or know that other students may be unsafe themselves, and we've been able to help those students. So again, it's been a valuable addition to our repertoire. And we have great cooperation with the Tiverton Police. I want to thank Chief Jones for being here. I'll let him introduce his staff momentarily. We talk a little bit more about some of these initiatives. What we've done in the presentation is kind of broken it out by school, and I'll ask our principals to address what's taking place in their schools at this time, and we'll talk at the high school and ask Principal Ashley.
Yes, thank you. So,
Chris, could you grab the mic and speak directly into that?
yes.
We probably could spare a couple up here, like a press conference.
Yes, so we began with a lockdown drill on October 25th, and again, that speaks to the partnership with the Tiverton Police Department because we have officers join us as we do the walk of the building to check on how the procedures are proceeding. We then tied that into an evacuation drill to practice evacuating the building again with supervision of the police department. On November 12th, at coordination with the middle school, had new staff go through the live training, Alice, with the other teachers, and then met with Principal Craven, State Fire Marshals, Tiverton Police Department, and the Fire Chief on the 19th to discuss the Alice protocols. Again, it's focusing on that collaboration between the fire, police, and then the schools. And then we met with the Tiverton Police on the 21st to discuss upcoming and ongoing Alice training for our staff and students. We have a joint parent information night planned with the middle school next week, December 5th at 6 o'clock, to talk a little bit more about what exactly is this Alice training. And then a training for students and staff on the 11th for, again, the students and the staff.
So you can see at the high school, it's a very comprehensive plan. You're going to see that replicated at the middle school that it'll have Principal Craven to address.
Yes, we have been working diligently to make sure that our district and our staff and our faculty and our students are ALICE protocol trained. So beginning of the year, we obviously have our evacuation drills, and right now our code green, so to speak, involves us evacuating the building to the football practice field. However, in working towards the ALICE protocols, we need to make sure we establish a rally point between two schools. So currently, the middle school rally point is the high school rally point is the middle school, and that's one of the reasons why that path was paved, so that our students can walk in between each school. In moving forward, the code green with the enhanced evacuation for the rally point will be that we move to the high school for an enhanced evacuation, and that way, and we can have the kids then bused to the reunification area. And that's some of the work we're doing together with the police and fire department in establishing that reunification area. So as Mr. Ashley said, our next plan is to educate the families about the ALICE protocols, because it's definitely extremely important that they're familiar with the process, and then the students at the middle school and high school.
Okay.
And you'll see
Thank you
this
very
play
much.
out with, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
This play out obviously at our three elementary schools. And again, in accordance with our requirements, we're completing all types of drills at the elementary schools, both unobstructed and obstructed fire drills and evacuation drills and lockdown drills. And many of these drills have been completed already and will be continued to be completed throughout the remainder of the school year. As part of our safety and security protocols, we also are taking a real close look at cyber security. So I've included that in this presentation also. And I'll ask our tech director, Mr. David Carnavale, to speak to this.
Good evening, everyone. So what you see on the slide is a couple of bullet points, and I'd just like to go over those with you today. So replaced all outdated switches and access points. So over the past 2 years, the technology team, we spent a lot of time inventorying all the switches, all the wireless access points we have in all the buildings. And what we did is we reviewed the ages of them and the firmware updates, if they're able to accept those, and what needed to be replaced. So what we did is we went in, replaced what needed to be replaced, made sure all the outdated information was then updated. We added some new virus protection software for all of our systems as well. So from when I first started here, as well as Bob Noguera, my tech specialist, we were using a free version of software, like a Microsoft out-of-the-box product for all of our systems. So we worked with many different companies, talking to them, other school districts, to find what's better for the district, so that we went out and purchased that last year. And we took that into consideration in regards to ransomware threats, where some of the, out-of-the-box freeze-type software doesn't provide that for us. So we went with one of the industry-leading companies with virus protection. Increased firewall protection. So the district's internet plan that we purchase every year with our company that provides the internet, and they do 80% of the school districts in the state of Rhode Island, they give us 2 firewalls to protect us from incoming and outgoing threats that happen at the school. With the One to World initiative that we're working on as a district, we also purchased a piece of software that helps us with that to manage the classrooms, but also added a 3rd layer of protection for us as a 3rd level firewall. So we don't only have just the 2 that we're given, we also have a 3rd one that's backing us up. We've teamed up with a company called Central Massachusetts Networking for stress testing on our network to see if they can access us from the outside world, as well as the inside world. So we're working with that team. So CMN will be coming in, doing tests internally to see where our network needs anything to be worked on. They're also going to be doing penetration tests from outside of the network. We meet monthly with all the Rhode Island tech directors and the Center for Internet Security, which is run by Homeland. So Homeland Security runs a monthly meeting, which is usually around the last Tuesday of the month. We had one today. And what they do is they go over some of the threats that they're seeing that are attacking government-type agencies, as well as anything that's happening with current softwares that are out there. For example, Firefox, Chrome, our regular internet browsers. And they let us know what possible threats could happen and where we should be on software updates, as well as firmware updates. So as a district, we look at what we're doing and make sure that we're following the procedures that are coming to us from these other companies that are offering that. We also signed up with a company, MS Isaac, which is also run by the Center of Internet Security, Homeland Security, the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. So this is no charge to the district because it is the government agency. And what they've done is they've allowed us to sign up for something that tests our network and compares us to other schools and lets us know if there's things that they see from external. So anything that they can get in externally, and they try to help us out and give us advice, which is great, and would happen in a few other school districts earlier over the summer. They're really working with all the Rhode Island tech directors this year to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And one of the things that we do as a team here, as our department, we go over the software that we have. We go over some of our internet logs, some of our firewall logs, just to see what threats or anything that the kids may be doing that might be not appropriate. And we try to block those. We meet as an admin team, as a cabinet as well, to make those decisions on sites that we are questionable about. So we're really trying our best here to make sure that the kids are safe when they're in the building, make sure the network is safe from being taken over. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you can see there's a lot of effort being put in place to keep our schools safe for both our students and our staff. But one of the greatest collaborations we have is with the Tiverton, the police department. We're fortunate tonight to have Chief Jones here. So I'd like to ask Chief Jones to come up to the podium, introduce the rest of his staff, and talk a little bit about our collaboration and some of the recommendations he may have for the school department.
Good evening. I want to thank the superintendent for inviting us here tonight. Tonight, I brought with me my captain, who's the second in command. He's also the uniform division commander, Captain Michael Miguel, and also Lieutenant Dan Raymond, who works the day shift, and he is the senior Alice instructor for the department. I remember when I first made chief 2 years ago, I was invited to talk about school security by the staff, and I remember stating publicly that you have a safe school system, and I can tell you today, and even from the very comprehensive work of the school staff, the superintendent, and also from the students, and the collaboration that exists between the police department, the fire department, and all public safety. I use a term that if it's impossible, we can make it happen in a negative connotation, but I think from what you're seeing here tonight, this is a positive thing. We're continuing to push that envelope and push that edge to do everything that we possibly can to make our schools safe and to continue that collaboration. So if there's something that we're not doing, we're going to learn about it, and if we learn about it, we're going to present it to the school, and vice versa. What we've done, as has been outlined, we keep that relationship open between your high school and your middle school and also your elementary schools. What we've done, and I'm going to let Lieutenant Raymond come up, given that he's the day shift commander, just talking about the day-to-day activities that we do as far as spot checks. Also, that the lieutenant just recently went to a training sponsored by the FBI regarding active shooter responses. So he can talk about, and you can ask him any questions that you might have about current trends that we're seeing. But I will also say, too, and the lieutenant can speak to him, I'm really picking on the lieutenant tonight, about hosting an ALICE training in town so we can offer this training not only to police officers in our department and in the area, but educators on a first-come, first-served basis for Tiverton. So this is kind of a first in our area, definitely in town, that we'd actually host an ALICE training to, and it'd be a train the trainer for instructors, and that it would be just a further collaboration of the partnership that exists between the school department and public safety. So with that, I'm going to ask the lieutenant to come up and just talk about just the day-to-day operations of what we do to keep our schools safe, and just talk a little bit about the training that he and also all of the SROs went to recently. Lieutenant.
Thank you, Chief.
Good evening. On the day shift, we've been having my offices on the day shift have been going from school to school during their patrol shift, going in and just introducing themselves if they haven't met anybody already, and just checking in and seeing how everything's going on. If they want to, they walk through the school, they familiarize themselves with the school. Again, with my amount of time being here, I'm still getting used to knowing how to get around the high school, even though I went to Durfee, which is a bigger school. But I don't know all the nooks and crannies. So, and not only that, just having our presence in the school, the kids have been really receptive to it. While I'm walking down the hall and hey, and the fist bump or the high five, or the teachers I know some teachers in the school system that I've been friendly with, and they've been appreciative of it because they feel safer because we've been going through the schools. So it's been well received. Also, being the day shift commander and the school being in session when I'm here, we do talk about the evacuation drills with the principals, and I would like to say publicly that I've never had greater cooperation with two individuals than the high school and middle school principal. They've been very receptive to what we've had for critiquing, and not only that, bringing stuff to our attention. They're a testament to your school department, Mr. Superintendent, and the school committee. So I wanted to make sure I said that publicly as well. So any questions that you might have for me at all so far?
Questions? Ms. Black?
No, I'd just like to say thank you so much for everything you do and all the training you go through to keep everyone safe. And this isn't new.
No.
This isn't new. I mean, this is terrible that we have to do this. We all know that. But we want to be prepared. I come from a time when we went under the desks when there were air raids. And that was a serious time, too. Mm-hmm. I always wondered when I was under there, I said, I don't think this is going to work out. Because I knew the desk was not going to save me for what was coming from the Russians. But anyway, I really want to thank you because we're just trying to make, we always used to say, if the students and staff don't feel safe and secure, no learning will occur. We know that.
Right.
If the kids are anxious and the teachers are anxious and just to huddle up in a corner, that's why Dr. Larkin and I, remember you went to that Rhode Island Association of School Committees,
Yep.
and they told us about ALICE, and then we brought it here, and it means alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. You talk about ALICE, people, what are you talking about? So you've got to learn what you're talking about. But it's to be, just to be ready and prepared and to have the staff and also the students prepared for anything that might come. And it makes me so happy that we're working with the police and the fire, and the staff is wonderful. And I want to thank everyone because this is so important.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Myself, Officer Black, and Officer Ray as the SRO, who's the current SRO, went to the FBI National Academy seminar up in Haverhill, Massachusetts on the 18th and 19th of this month. We got some eye-opening. There was some stuff that was familiar to us, and there was some stuff that we've learned through the ALS program that was, there's a lot of programs out there, Run, Hide, Fight. There's one of them that comes to mind right now. Without having notes in front of me, I'm sorry. But it really, really opened our eyes to what can go wrong if something were to happen. It was very informative, especially the one when we had to, we sat and listened to the chief of Coral Springs from Florida through the Marjorie Stone Douglas incident. I learned a lot from that, and hopefully, we can add it to our policies, the current policies now that we're actually working on and reading to assist in getting safety and emergency staff here to the school. God forbid that event ever happens, and I hope it never does. And I just, in knowing from going to that training that we're invested in the safety of the children in the school. I have 2 boys in the school system, and I'm very much invested in making sure the schools are safe. And hopefully, in the near future, we can speak more about doing more target hardening of the schools, which is one of the things they spoke about. A lot of things kind of just still with me, and I'd like to be able to, add that to our policies where we can in the future, and speaking with you to help you keep your schools even safer. But know that we are on top of things. We are keeping an eye on the schools. We care about the kids. We really do. We want to make sure that we're not the enemy. We're here for you, and we'll always be here for you. So if you have any questions for me right now, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, I hope I was helpful, or again with no notes.
Ms. Barnworth?
Not bad for off the cuff.
Oh, I tried.
No, I just want to say thank you to yourself, Captain Jones, not Captain Jones, excuse me, Chief Jones, Captain Miguel, for coming to speak with us tonight. I think one of the things that I'm noticing, you did just come in front of us a couple of years ago, really for the first time, to talk about this ALICE training and other very important security issues. One of the new concepts I learned here tonight was about rally points. That was completely new to me. So it shows that, the school department, the police department, they're working together hand in hand, and they're always looking for ways to improve. I don't know if we will ever 100% be able to protect everyone, but we can do our best. We can always look for better ways of handling things, better ways of protecting, and that's really, the best that we can do, and never let down on it. It's got to be something we always look to do better
Absolutely.
on. And thank you for everything you've done.
You're very welcome.
Anyone from the administration or the public, principals, students? So, yeah, again, echo the thanks of everyone to Captain Miguel, Chief Jones, Lieutenant Raymond. And I agree, it's vigilance and collaboration that is going to hopefully rule the day if anything happens. So,
Absolutely.
thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have
Okay,
more on?
we're going to move on.
Okay.
We're going to move into the data presentation this evening. A lot of data to share with you. We'll start with a look at our RICAS scores that came in from last year. And then we'll move into a presentation of a lot of the scores that take place at the high school, starting with SAT and AP scores. So RICAS, as you're aware, last spring was the second spring in a row that we administered RICAS, which now gives us a 2-year comparison compared to previous tests that were administered in Rhode Island. And once you start using the same test over and over, we really can start getting deeper into the impact we see both on our students and on our curriculum. But this is an important slide that I want to share with you. The results you're about to see reflect a time and place last spring, showing where Tiverton students compared to students of the same grade level in other communities. It does not mean our students are not as smart or that our teachers are not as talented. What it shows is there are gaps in our curriculum that need to be addressed. The hard work we put in place last year has already begun to show modest gains, and I'm confident that the adjustments that we'll continue to make will increase our level of rigor and instruction. The Tiverton scores will continue to rise dramatically. These scores speak directly for continued teacher professional development, professional learning communities, advanced technology, and more writing. The goals and objectives we've put in place are starting to pay off, but we continue to need to chase those goals with abandon. So the scores you're going to see are categorized into, or RICAS scores are categorized into 4 areas, and you can see them listed there: not meeting, partially meeting, meeting, and exceeding. And we expect all of our students to be in those top 2 categories of meeting and exceeding. So the charts you're about to see are the percentage of students in those top 2 categories. The test is administered in both ELA and mathematics, and we'll take you through all the grade levels that took the test last year. The first data we're going to show you is a comparison between our schools and our neighbors, our demographically similar communities, and communities we aspire to do as well. So here we're looking at grade 3 English language arts. Again, this is the percentage of students in the meeting and exceeding categories. Our 3 elementary schools are in red, and you see some comparison communities in blue. And what this speaks to me, and you'll see this in a number of the charts, is when we use that term professional learning community, which is where teachers of the same grade level get the opportunity to work together. And we believe the more work they do, the closer those red bars will join together. And we believe that work will start paying off as soon as next year. And so this is grade 4 English language arts. And again, our schools are in red, comparison communities are in blue. And I'm just going to continue to move through. The test is administered in grades 3 through 8, so now we're looking at grade 5. And this is grade 6. Grade 7, and grade 8. So again, the percentage of students in those top 2 categories, you saw some outstanding results in some grade levels, and you see some grade levels that we feel we have some growth areas for us there. And another way to look at the data is by looking at growth. And one way you can look at growth is to a cohort of students. So in this chart here, now that we have 2 years of the test, the blue bar represents the test that was given in 2018. The red bar is 2019. It's the same group of students, so 3rd grade compared to 4th grade. How did they grow? So again, if we use Fort Barton as an example, the 3rd graders, 45, and I'll use round numbers, about 46% of them were in the top 2 categories. And when they moved to 4th grade, that same group of students moved up to 61.12%. You can see how that cohort of students played out at both Pocasset and at Ranger. As we continue to administer the test, we'll continue to track that cohort of students. So next year we'll put the 5th grade bar next to them and the 6th grade bar. And our ideal is to continue to move the bar to the right, further up on the continuum of meeting and exceeding. So this is the growth of 4th to 5th grade. And see, it's tracking exactly how we would hope. And that is 5th to 6th. Again, tracking positively. 7th to 8th. Now I'm going to put a caveat in here. When you go back to all the communities I showed you on the comparison band there was not one community who saw their 7th graders increase over the 6th grade score. So I suggest that 7th grade test probably has to be recalibrated, and that happens when you're using a test for the first time. There's times where they'll put test questions on there. They might make the test a little too rigorous. So I'm not overly concerned with that drop there because, again, every community that we're compared to saw a similar drop from 6th to 7th grade.
So every community that we're compared to, every community in Rhode Island?
I only looked at the communities we're comparing to, and I think that's enough of a sample to say that was probably pretty consistent across the board.
And that's Portsmouth, Middletown, Bristol Warren.
Yeah, who do we
Little
compare
Compton.
to?
South Kingston,
And East Providence? or something
North
like that?
Kingstown, no, Barrington.
So Newport, Middletown, Little Compton,
Alright.
Bristol Warren, North Kingston, Narragansett, South Kingston, Portsmouth, and Barrington.
Okay.
So you have a nice sampling there of different types of communities too, but everyone dropped. And that's not unusual. Having looked at test results for years, there's always times where you might see a grade level drop across the board because we know the test makers are just really trying to calibrate the test. And again, we see that positive gain for 7th to 8th grade. Now, there's another way to look at growth, and this is the way the state calculates it. You can see the scoring table down there. 1 to 34 is considered low. Typical growth 35 to 69, and high growth 70 to 99. What happens here is we take, and let's take for example 4th grade. 2 years ago in 2018, all the 4th graders had a score. And all those students who had the same score are put in the same bucket. So for example, say a student had a 60 on the score. That student who had a 60 in Tiverton is put in the same bucket for a kid who had a 60 who may live in Portsmouth, who may live in Middletown, who may live in Providence. They all are put in the same bucket because they're starting at the same place. And when that test is given a year later, we calculate the growth of all those students in the same bucket. The student who scored the highest amongst that same group of students is the 99th percentile. And then we track all the students back that way. So it's really a true growth model of comparing like students across the state to see how far they grow. Then we aggregate those scores for our grade levels and our schools. So here, we're looking at the aggregate growth scores of all of our grade levels from 4th to 8th grade. And again, I'll remind you that typical growth is 35 to 69%, where all of our schools are in that range. And then I was a little more curious with the growth scores, having done that comparison to other communities. So again, I took our growth scores and matched them up that way. And again, you can see that we have some bars to the far right, which is tremendous. And then again, that just speaks to how do we get all the red bars together. We have our teachers who teach that grade level work together, have a guaranteed and viable curriculum, start looking at results. And again, I believe we can move them that direction. And I didn't do this for every grade level. I did it for 4th and 8th grade. And here is the 8th grade growth score for Tiverton Middle School compared to those other communities. And again, it's a solid growth. So a lot of data. I'm going to keep moving through it. We'll just kind of repeat it excuse me, for math. So again, this is 3rd grade mathematics, percentage of students in the top 2 categories. And we have 4th grade math. So seeing some high percentage of students doing well at our elementary schools. 5th grade math. And there's 6th grade. And 7th grade. And 8th grade. And again, I apply the same growth model here of a cohort of students, so where they were in 3rd grade compared to 4th grade. And again, you see in a couple of our schools it's tracking positively. We see a dip in the others, and that's something that concerns us and certainly something we want to address. And here we're seeing growth from 4th to 5th tracking positively, 5th to 6th tracking positively, 6th to 7th tracking positively. And 7th to 8th, we're going to see a little bit of a dip, and I'll say the same thing to you, that all those communities we were tracking against also had a dip in 8th grade, so I suggest that 8th grade math test is being calibrated and looked at for a lot of different reasons. Again, the growth scores that I addressed earlier, with typical being 35 to 69%. And again, all but one of our schools is in that growth range of typical growth. And here I just tracked the growth scores comparatively to the same communities. And you can see, again, we've got some gaps between our schools here, which again just says there's work that we can do to bring the instruction closer that's taking place at these 3 schools.
Do you ever map the growth scores to sort of where they scored to begin with, by cohorts? I don't know if I said that the right way. If you've got 10 kids in the 99th percentile to begin with, their growth score may be pretty negligible because they're already
Regression
slamming
to the
the
mean,
thing out of
right.
the park. Whereas, are you seeing the growth across the board? Are you seeing the growth mostly in the low performance cohort from last year? You're seeing it in the middle cohort? You're seeing it everywhere?
We're seeing it everywhere, and that's how that
But you can parse that data that way?
we can. Yes, we
Okay.
can. And I would suggest to you that you're right. When you have a number of students who are scoring exceedingly high, so say they're at, say, a 90, you can still hit the 99th percentile by only making 2 points of a gain if you're the highest of that cohort of students. So you still get put on that continuum. Just the gap between them is a lot smaller, if that's making
Well, your
sense.
growth isn't going to be
Right,
as great.
regression to the mean, right?
Right.
But there's still
Right.
growth. So if you're a low-scoring student, say you're in the 30, and one of those students in the 30 makes it all the way to, say, 70, that's 40 points. He's the 90th percentile, right?
Mhm.
But if you have a student scoring 90 and the top student goes to 93, that continuum is only 3 points, where the other one was 40 points.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
yeah. Now, this is, I want to share with you this data, because this is the data we dig into and work exceedingly hard on. So I'm not going to, you have every one of the tests that were given last year, and I'm not going to show you every one of these charts. But this is the actual test last year. X-axis is the question, Y-axis is the score. Blue line chart is the school, the orange is the district, and gray is the state. So this is 3rd grade math for Fort Barton. And you can see if you look at that, if I just point, I'm going to point this out a little bit. Question 3 and 5 on the far left, you're going to see that the blue dot's a little lower than we like it. But then again, if you look at questions 7, 8, 13, 29, 28, all the way out, you see Fort Barton has some tremendous high scores there, above the district, above the state, and so forth. So this is the kind of data we look at. We can map, every one of those questions maps to a standard. We can pull that standard out. We can ask our teachers, when is it taught? When is it mastered? When is it reinforced? How do we have to look at that for the next cohort of students coming in? How do we adjust our teaching? So this data is incredibly valuable to us. And
So-
what's in,
The amazing thing found about all these curves is how much they track with each other or correlate from the district to from the school to the district to the state. So
Well,
that
because the
suggests
district's
that there's
small,
some lousy questions, I have to say.
Well, you're going to see, let me find a good one to show you here. So, yeah, this is a
Yeah.
good one on a very
Question
positive.
38 is not too good.
This is Range's 3rd grade math, and you can see there it is tracking most questions way above the district and the state.
And the question you have to ask yourself too, Jerry, though, is, are the questions mixed into these tests so as to provide more challenge from one question to the next and vice versa? You would never want to see a straight line across. I don't
No.
imagine you ever will.
No, granted, but if the entire, if everybody bombs a question on a test, the question is, was the material
it an
never taught?
appropriate question,
Or
or-
was the question poorly constructed?
Right, so if you go back and I talked to you about that 6th to 7th grade drop in ELA, and I said almost the whole state drop,
Right.
I guarantee you that item analysis, those questions will be changed on next year's
Right.
test.
Okay.
Be questions like that. But what's interesting, and I'll just focus on 3rd grade math. So, just sort of train your eye. You can, if you follow the blue bar there for Fort Barton, and it's different for Pecasset, and it's different for Ranger. That just says, I kind of jumped to 4th grade there, but my point being is when we see our 3 schools track a little bit differently, again, talks to the work. If we can put our teachers together and have them work collaboratively, we should be able to track our district and our schools on a very similar line, because we spend the same amount of time teaching ELA and math. We're using the same curriculum now. We're using the same assessments, and we're talking about what works.
So we don't have that graph, though, although we can sort of guess at it. We don't have, we have them against the district and the, which I guess is an aggregate, all right, and the state, but we don't have Ranger, Pocasset, and Fort Barton.
No,
in
we could lay it
one
out like
graph.
that if we needed to.
Oh, I don't know.
But we
Might
we
bore
work
everybody.
at the school-based level on these
Right.
questions now. So I'm going to just skip through the rest of the.
Yeah.
You get the sense of it. And
Yep.
So we have it for 5th grade. We'll basically just track against the state in the 6th grade, and the 7th grade, and 8th grade. And then the work we've been doing analyzing this data needs to change instruction, needs to inform instruction, needs to form the work our students do our teachers do, and our students are experiencing in school. So I'm going to ask our Assistant Superintendent, Amy Donnelly Roach, to address these slides. She's been working with our staff and coming up with these recommendations that's going to inform our instruction this year.
Can we move one over here?
Yeah, we've got way too many.
She's
All the
got
mics,
2, I've
Dr.
got 2.
Looks like a press conference. So, right, as was discussed, we do already have a a program that is highly regarded in terms of our math. So to speak specifically about math, we plan to proceed with using the Eureka math program, but really have to take a moment. It's been in place approximately 5 years in Tiverton, so it's time to kind of titrate how we use it and look at where some of our schools excelled and other schools may need to borrow their expertise and their strategies in terms of how they're teaching things. So that's one thing we will be doing, especially at the elementary levels and among our teachers 5 through 8. Additionally, this is the first year that our state has an upgraded item bank that is digital, and so we will be using those release items that are from prior tests and are available to our students to familiarize themselves with testing online, which is still relatively new in our district, and making sure that they're not standalone. We're not planning to do test prep. We're planning to embed them into what we teach in meaningful ways, into the units of study where those skills are addressed. And we can do that very specifically because we have that item analysis, all of those graphs Dr. Sanchioni shared. We also have student-specific item analysis that within a certain class or within a certain grade at a school, small groups of teachers will be going even deeper into that data and looking at which students need what level of support so we can intervene right away. And we do that already through data meetings, which we're getting better at. We'll be using, Dr. Larkin, the student growth percentiles you were referencing are available as Dr. Sanchioni mentioned, but they're also available in our STAR assessments. So you can look at students who are in the 99th percentile and rank them against other students. And that growth will be smaller than the growth of students who show up to us today in the 30th percentile. We expect higher growth from students who are not yet meeting expectations. So we want to push that and really look and drill down into the standards, into how it's taught, and to make sure that we're moving kids and expecting them to hit the standards and be able to demonstrate what they know. And certainly the professional learning communities that are in place this year, which we're all learning how to use, we're going to really leverage those to make sure we're moving forward and sharing our successes and the many strengths that we do have within the teachers, within the classrooms, excuse me. At the middle school in particular, our teachers have really drilled down and come up with wonderful recommendations with Ms. Craven's support. And so you see on the screen that there's enrichment specific, and this is additional math instruction provided to every student by grade level that targets areas in which we know we have room for growth. That's pretty powerful right there, that first bullet with the 4 pieces underneath it. And we also will be, again, while individual teachers are adjusting their instruction for the kids in front of them, all teachers will be using the constructed responses to make sure that we can explain how we do things, not just complete a task, but explain why and how we do things, how we interpret graphs and charts, how we interpret and use data. And also building in quick math warm-ups to make sure that kids stay fluent on their skills, build them in first 3 minutes of class, a quick do now, get settled, show us what you know, and move on. At elementary, as you saw, our item analysis shows that there are different strengths and needs at each of the schools, but common among the 3 elementary schools is a need to practice that exact thing I was just mentioning at the middle school, not just completing a problem, but interpreting the data and reading data, understanding what we're looking at and being able to model things in math. Reinforcing the use of the area model, which is a way to teach mathematical, really a way to teach multiplication in a visual way, and accessing and leveraging the ability to teach that in a visual manner that just builds from area and perimeter right to mathematics. And that's something that's deeply embedded in Eureka Math. And then using digital video resources, making sure we explicitly teach math vocabulary, and making sure that weekly at the elementary schools there's common planning built into teachers' schedules where they're going to talk about staying on pace and making sure they're teaching all of those standards.
All right, so we're not going to, again, show you every one of these charts. We worked at math, and it's the same thing that plays out here. So we have, again, for example, grade 3 ELA for Ranger. Same thing, it tracks blue for the school, orange for the district, gray for the state. Again, here, this is a great one to show you because obviously Ranger did exceptionally well in ELA last year, one of the highest scoring schools in the state. And you can see by their test to answer questions there how they outperform. And again, if I just stay with grade 3, we can see a very different trend line for Pocasset and a very different trend line for Fort Barton. So again, by having our teachers, by providing our teachers the opportunity to work together, again, with a first-time guaranteed and viable curriculum, the same assessments, the same data, the same technology, we expect those trend lines to become a lot tighter as we continue to move forward. So I'm going to just click through 4th grade and 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Again, you have all this data in your packet, but it's, again, how the work we do as an instructional staff, which leads to this, which leads to the recommendations that we've identified for ELA that's going to inform instruction this year.
And you'll see some of this is somewhat repetitive, but I do want to point out that a good practice for using data is a good practice for using data. In terms of Wit and Wisdom, our new ELA, English Language Arts program, K through 8, I want to just point out that implementing a program with a shift in instruction to a knowledge-based program and the way that it pushes the rigor, or something that may perhaps have once been taught in 6th grade is now taught in 3rd grade. That's going to take multiple years. So we know and plan that that's at least a 3-year process of change and in terms of implementing that well. And we're working really hard to make sure our teachers are well supported and well trained to do that. Incorporating writing, as Dr. Sanchioni said, has been a district goal and continues to be a district goal across every class, every subject, and really high expectations that are, again, built in with the support of Wit and Wisdom for language usage, text citation, critical thinking, syntax, all sorts of details, and really making sure our kids have those skills solid. And you'll see some pieces there that look similar to what I spoke about in terms of math. Some of these echo those protocols for using data, but I think the pieces we've added already are making sure our kids are reading and writing online and just as fluid and comfortable doing that as they would be with a book in their hand, and we really want to make sure that that continues to happen. At the middle school, again, the teachers have done an amazing job sitting down and really digging deep into the data. And we are prioritizing computer-based reading and writing using some software we're piloting. We're also, thanks to Mrs. Craven and her team there, every department, every co-curricular class is using writing assessments. Do you mind clicking? Pardon me. Oh, I apologize. I was talking middle, but I can talk elementary. That's great. Thank you so much. These are the two, well, all three of the bullets there are huge shifts to make sure that there are common expectations and rigorous expectation for writing, whether you're in physical education, art, social studies, science, and that common calibration of expectations, and really looking at student work and making sure that expectation stays high across every classroom in that school. It's a huge shift. At elementary, there's similar things going on, although as you know from the item analysis, there are some different needs. So starting next week, second graders will start learning and becoming comfortable on a computer, on a small, comfy keyboard, but starting keyboarding instruction next week. And we know that that's a big change for us, but it's something that if they're tested in third grade on fluency on a computer, it's only fair that we give them that opportunity and the comfort level now. So that's a big change. We're using a digital reading tool called My On News. And again, starting not next month, but next week, all kids in grades 2, 3, and 4 will be practicing the keyboarding, reading online, and making sure they're comfortable doing those things. So small changes that will lead to big changes.
Pause there for a minute, just sort of summarize that a lot of these scores now get pulled into the school accountability results, and I'm going to review those for you momentarily. But just to go back to the RICAS and say to you that we had some tremendous gains across the district. We certainly recognize the areas we continue to need to look at and get better at. However, I'll just take you back to the growth, the cohort growth of students in all but one grade level at one point. All of our cohort of students made gains. So you may have saw some low percentages, for example, at the middle school for mathematics, but those students moving from one grade to the other are growing. And what that says to me is that our teachers are working hard, they're looking at the data, we're making the right curriculum adjustments, and when we put that next bar on next year, when say that kid who took the test in 5th grade and moved up in 6th, we want that 7th grade bar to just be a little bit higher. If we can continue to do that, then our efforts are being met. So again, data presentation this evening. So these test scores now get pulled into what's called school accountability results, but there's a lot of other data that comes into that. So the first two we just reviewed with you, RICAS results and growth results. Another bit of data that's look at is how does your English language learners grow. Our numbers are so low, we don't have scores for those students at any one of our schools. But this also now takes into the data of student absenteeism, percentage of days students who miss more than 10% of the school year, or 18 days. Teacher absenteeism, same thing. That gets taken into our school accountability results. Our suspension rate, the number of students in that top category, there's extra points given in the accountability for exceeding expectations. And then for the high school, it looks at the graduation rate. So what I've done is I've broken down our 5 schools. I'm showing you out of the 5 stars, how many stars each school obtained. I'm also showing you the areas where they did exceptionally well and the areas that each school has for growth. So we start with Fort Barton. Fort Barton was our highest scoring school, 4 stars. They received a perfect score, 3 out of 3 points for ELA achievement, ELA growth, math growth, student attendance, and low suspension rate. All the other areas of measure, all the other academics were a solid 2. At Ranger, they were very close to being a 4-star school. Actually, one of the things that we have to, well, let's talk about their strengths, their ELA achievement, their math achievement. You saw that on the slides. I mean, Ranger had tremendous growth, one of the highest scoring schools in Rhode Island. But the areas we need to look at is math growth. You may remember there was a drop in growth from one grade level to the other. But we had some teacher chronic absenteeism that dropped Ranger down, and certainly we're looking at that. At Pecasset had 2 stars, and where Pecasset was strong was low teacher absenteeism and a low suspension rate. But in those academic areas, ELA growth, math growth, exceeding expectations for ELA and math, we were down. We were scoring 1 out of the 3 points there. And again, that's something we can address by having our teachers work together, by having that guaranteed and viable curriculum. At the middle school demonstrated some strong strengths, low teacher absenteeism, low student suspensions. The area that the middle school needs to look at is exceeding expectations for math, 1 out of 3 points. That's getting students in that top category. But impressively, all other academic ratings at the middle school were a solid 2 out of 3. And at the high school The high school had strong scores for ELA achievement, and you're going to see a presentation momentarily where the high school gives the SAT and that test is tracked for ELA. They also had exceeding expectations for ELA, some great growth there in that category. The areas for improvement at the high school. So the only, out of all the criteria, the only one that's not on a 3-point scale is the graduation rate. That's out of 3 out of 5-point scale. So Tiverton High School obtained 3 out of the 5 points because the graduation rate needs to get to a solid 90%, which we are tracking on that as we actually looked at that today. The student suspension rate was also too high, and I know that's something Principal Ashley is looking at and certainly going to address. And then all the other academic areas were a solid 2. So that's the district report card broken out by all 5 of our schools. I know it's a lot of data to look at, and we have more to share, but if you want to stop there with that, we can address some of that.
That is a lot of data.
We're not done yet either.
I know. I sort of was able to take in some of this before the meeting, but still pondering a lot of it. Questions from the committee? Mrs. Black?
No questions, but I thank you for that deep analysis. And what I love that Mrs. Downey Roach said is starting next week. I love that because we can't start next month or next year, because if the children have to take the test on a computer, they have to become comfortable with that, or we won't even know what they know. So that's absolutely ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. So I'm very happy you're addressing that. And as you know, we said 1,000,000 times, we went from kneecap, then we went to park, and now we're at RICAS, and we're all over the place. But the most important thing is when we built the 3 new schools, we wanted to make sure there was parity. Because back in the day, Nonquit had maybe 10 kids in a class, and Picasa had 23, or whatever the max was. And we said we never wanted there to be an imbalance again. And then when Fort Barton School got the Dunn Institute grant, we wanted to make sure they shared the best practices with the other 2 schools. That's always been our goal sitting up here. So I'm very happy to hear, because there's no reason. They're all the same kids. They're all from our community. They all have gifts and talents. And so to look at one school way up here and another school, there has to be things that we must do. And I know we're going to address them, and that's really important, because they're all going to end up with you in 5th grade, right? They're all going to walk in the same door and be together and have the same expectations on them. So it's our job to get them ready for that, just like it's our job to get them ready for whatever test they throw at us, even if we don't agree with it. Because those kids, when I taught catechism, just as quickly, I taught 8th grade catechism, and then you went into make your confirmation freshman and sophomore year. You had to take a test from the diocese to get into that confirmation class. What they had done, and they changed from the old question and answer Baltimore catechism to a much more loving curriculum and positive and pretty pictures and everything. But what they didn't do is change the test. So when you got your secret envelope to open up to give the kids the test that day, they all looked at it like, what is this? Like different, how many books in the Bible, specific questions that were in the Baltimore Catechism, well, they couldn't pass it. And so they're going out. So I had to talk to the bishop, believe it or not, and say, you can't test what you didn't teach. You know, you have to change. And that's what we've been doing all these years. And when I was at Durfee, and they first started in 1993, what they did is they hired us in the summer to come and align the curriculum with the test that was coming in. That's why Massachusetts does so well. Not in Rhode Island. Here's a new test. Good luck with that. That's what they've been doing. It's horrible. We all know that. But anyway, thank you so much for all this hard work and this deep dive. And I know we can get it done because we have amazing teachers and amazing kids. Thank you.
So I'm a little alarmed at how well I followed your catechism metaphor, but Mrs. Farnworth?
I do have a couple of questions. One has to do with mathematics. I know that we've installed Eureka, as Ms. Donnelly Roach mentioned, about 5 years now. Coming from the perspective of a parent who went through much of the growing pains as that program was established, one thing I learned was that I had no idea how to help with homework, because the methods being used to teach mathematics, whether it be Eureka or whatever curriculum, is so far different than any of us ever studied when we were in school. And certainly math is become a focal point across the state as an area in which we all struggle, not just Tiverton. And while it's great that we're seeing growth, I'm trying to think of ways that we can maybe accelerate that growth a little bit. Has there been any kind of thought to perhaps giving parents an opportunity to pick up some skills to help their kids? Especially those at the younger grades, you know, I can remember the boxes and everything when my son was little and saying, what? You know, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one. And I figured it out, but I know a lot of people might actually give up and say, oh, good luck to your teacher tomorrow.
Well, that's a really good point. And, you know, the problem is that if you don't have that in your hands as a parent, what you wind up doing, and I'll plead guilty, is you teach it the way you know it.
Do it the old way.
And then you're kind of going at cross purposes to the teacher.
And so briefly, just two items, and certainly I'm looking at Mrs. Craven since she lives and breathes Eureka math often. Two things that can help, I think, is that, first of all, in terms of how math is taught, we really teach it in a visual constructivist model with a goal of absolute fluency and the old-fashioned way I think many of us were taught, algorithms, having those algorithms down and solid by 3rd, 4th grade, and that is the goal. But understanding why that algorithm works and the concept of the math coming first. So that's, I think, the shift that is being made across the country. One of the things we've implemented this year is parent tip sheets for each of the Eureka modules. And so each grade level has units of study or modules, 6, 7, I think one grade level has 8 modules across the grade. And so we've invested in the parent tip sheets for each of those units, which are in the online backpacks that we have on our web pages. And also teachers have access to them to send them home in both English and Spanish. So we know that we've gotten some feedback already. Just yesterday I got some feedback from a parent at parent-teacher conferences that those have been very helpful. So there's some modeling of the why and the how of what we're teaching as a support to all parents, K through 8.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess I might just want to emphasize, you know, putting that out as a message. I mean, that's great. Putting it out at the beginning of the school is one thing. I think kind of continuing to reinforce that will help a lot of parents. Those poor parents.
The other question I had was with regard to student suspension rates. Are those inclusive of both in and out of school suspensions, the numbers?
Yes.
Okay. And is Tiverton markedly higher than its peers, or is it just, I mean, for it to stand out, it's just a question, you know, what do
No,
we do?
We got dinged on it, so what are we going to,
Yeah, I didn't do an analysis, and I looked at Principal Ashley. If he did it, we just looked at our data. And I think that, you know, some of the things that are being put in place, like the diversion program, where we're not suspending students for drugs or alcohol anymore, are going to have an impact on that. I think Principal Ashley's addressing some of the other issues that goes with that.
Okay. Just to speak on another big piece of working on historical practices, working, we understand conflicts are going to arise, but working to address them at the classroom level before they escalate into something more significant as a whole school.
Okay. And then I guess lastly, it's just a commentary, you know, thank you all for the hard work you've done over the last year to implement new policies. You've got new curriculum in the English language arts. And clearly you know, from the 80,000 graphs we've looked at tonight, there has been some definite positive growth, and I so look forward to seeing next year's year-over-year comparisons, that 3-year RICAS, and tell the state not to change it. so that we, we can see some meaningful trends, from one year to the next. I mean, last year we'd say, okay, it's a point in time, we don't know what we don't know. This year we've got some comparison, and next year you can start looking at trends, and I think that's the all-important piece of this, to make sure that we're heading in the right direction at all of our schools. Congratulations to those who are very high performers. I really want to encourage everyone to just continue working hard, as I know you all are doing, at making the Tiverton school system the best it can be. Thank you.
All right, well, buckle in, because now we're going to take a look at the high school, and we have a lot of data to share with you from Tiverton High School. We're fortunate tonight to have our guidance director, Ms. Lisa Borges, here, and our principal to take you through this, so I'm not sure who's going to speak first, but you are on.
So this is a lot of data. So once you take this home and read through it all weekend, if you have any questions, just ask. You can just shoot me an email about this data, and I can answer the questions the best that I can. So just like last year, what we did was we put where our students are going. So this shows you over the past few years where our students actually ended up going for their first year of college. A couple of things, there are a few new schools on here. 3 new ones that stood out to us this year was, we have someone that actually went over to Ireland at Maynooth University. We got a student that's over in Purdue this year, and someone at Notre Dame. So those were the 3 that stood out this past year on these slides. So you can take some time and look at those, but that's where they ended up going. One thing I do want to show you, if you look at BCC and CCRI, and I think I mentioned this last year, the numbers have flipped because of the 2-year program for free. So if you look at CCRI last year, 34 students actually applied. We just had CCRI in last week, and 1/3 of our seniors applied to it. So you'll see our numbers for 4-year schools are dropping because many students are taking advantage of the 2 free years at CCRI. And this is where our students actually got accepted to. So a student that applies to 6 schools gets accepted to 6 schools. This is all the schools that they were actually accepted to, not where they necessarily went. Again, read this when you go home tonight. Let me know if you have any questions. So about the AP scores, you'll notice down the bottom it says 2019 not available. I don't know if you're aware, but College Board has revamped their AP program a little bit, the way it tests the whole ordering system, and the way they are producing scores to systems. I've actually called them because I really like this graph. I think it shows some good information based from Tiverton High School, Rhode Island, and globally, but they are no longer producing this. So that's just a visual of how our students did that, got a 3 or better on the AP exam.
Are they reporting any statistics to you?
They are, and you'll see it on this slide.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can only get the statistics for the exams we offer here. So that's why you see the asterisks there. For the total number of AP students globally and across Rhode Island, that information was not available, only based on the exams we give here. But you'll see the number of our AP students has steadily increased. The number of exams taken has steadily increased. The amount of students that get a score of 3 or better has increased as well.
When you have the total AP students, is that the number of students enrolled in
one of
any
our AP
class,
classes. So
or?
we have 85 students taking 209 exams. We have some students that take 2, 3, 4 exams.
Yeah, I guess my question was, if you are in 3 AP classes, does that count as 3 students, or
No.
does that count as 1 student? Okay,
But 3 exams.
got it.
And
And-
this year, we're even higher right now. I want to say we're close to 100 students, and our exams, I think, are at 240-ish.
Is that all juniors and seniors?
It's mostly juniors and seniors.
Mostly, but not all.
No. we don't really have any 9 or grade 10 taking AP exams.
So it is all juniors and
Yeah,
seniors?
juniors and seniors,
Okay.
yes, sorry, I misunderstood.
No, no.
So then I broke it down by subject, so you can see the scores. Again, if you notice in 2019, I put the percentages underneath, because that's now how they're going to be reporting them. So biology, you can see we had 22 students take the exam with a mean score of 2.95, which if you look at the mean scores, is actually a smidge higher than Rhode Island and globally. Did the same thing for all we've got calculus there, again, the percentages, we had 21 students take that, score not as high as the state or globally. Chemistry, you can see that, we're just a little bit below Rhode Island's average for the score, but 16 students did enroll in that and take the exam. Computer science, so last year was the first year we offered AP computer science principles. Mrs. Moore took a summer course the summer prior to this that was offered in conjunction, I believe, with RIDE and URI. And you can see we had 12 students take it last year, and for a first year, those scores are well above Rhode Island's average mean. English language is a grade 11 class. It's always very popular. You notice the numbers have gone up. We had 33. Our score is well above Rhode Island and globally. English Lit is the senior class. Again, 30-plus students. We have 30 students there, and our score is basically in line with Rhode Island and globally. Psychology, 15 students. That's a course that varies. That's a mixed course. Usually juniors and seniors are both enrolled in there. Spanish, we only had 3 students last year, so to protect their identity, I did not list which scores they got, but we did get a mean score of 3.33, which again is right on average with the state and globally. Statistics, we had 22. I can tell you this year we have well above 30. It's become an increasingly popular course. And you can see the averages there slightly off from Rhode Island and globally. And our art exceeds both. We had 6 students. I think we have about 8 this year. And then US history. 27 students, just below the averages there with the scores. So that's all the AP data, and it's a lot to digest. If you don't know, it is scored up to 5, and they usually report 3 plus. Most schools will give credit for scores of 4 and 5, but there are some scores that give credit for a 3. It just depends on the school that the students are applying to. And this slide is still in there. This is the old SAT. If you know, they changed it in 2017. So that's when you only took it if you wanted to, and you signed up on your own, and those were our scores for the 3 years with the old format, compared to a few schools around. And then you have the new format, and this is when it became, so in 2017 was the first year it was piloted as the state test for juniors. You'll notice the percent tested is low, 79%, and that is because that year we did not offer a makeup exam for students that were absent on the one day. And you'll notice in 18 and 19, our percentages of students taking it was 95. Because we are giving one test day. If a student doesn't show up, there is a makeup test date, but if they don't show up then, that's it. There's not a window of which they can take it. There's just 2 specific dates. So you can see our math. Our math in 2017, when the percentage was low, was a bit higher. Students that didn't want to take it didn't show up and weren't forced to take the makeup. Whereas the score in 18 and 19, 475 and 474. And then you can see the English there. I compared it to East Providence, Middletown, Rogers, Portsmouth, and Smithfield. Actually, we did quite well if you look on the bottom. Sorry,
Okay.
I was reading Rhode Island, 81, 97, and 95. Actually, we in guidance saw our averages for math and ELL were higher than we thought. We thought they were gonna take a dip because every junior was mandated to take it, not just the ones that wanted to. And so the scores, I think the scores look pretty good there. And then we have the, Dr. Sanquioni made this a lovely little graph so we can see where the students that are meeting and exceeding expectations are.
Thank you, Ms. Borges. So what this just speaks to is similar to the RICAS presentation, is the percentage of our students taking these exams that, again, are meeting and exceeding. And so you can see we're similar to our area schools, but obviously striving to be over to the right more as we move forward. Oops. And then in math, again, similar in terms of where we are with the schools, again, percentage meeting and exceeding. In a moment, I'll speak to some of the steps and goals we have to get us bumped to the right and right in line there with the North Kingstown, South Kingstown, and Barrington. So speaking about English, so again, similar to what was just spoken to from Dr. Sanquioni, is we're taking a look at each of the questions on the ESATs and the SATs. Just like you saw those kind of checkered up and down graphs, we're looking at the individual questions, identifying where we're doing well, identifying the curriculum there, and then also where are the areas that we're not doing as well on, looking at the associated standard, and then bringing that question and those standards back to the teams, and this is the key part, as Dr. Sanquioni spoke to, and saying where in the curriculum do we need to make those adjustments. And so in our PLCs, our teachers are looking at those standards, adjusting the curriculum, and then modifying the assessments. In ELA, we're also making a big push on close reading strategies, because we recognize that some of the questions we didn't do as well on was where we think the students aren't reading in the SAT and the PSAT, there's some of the questions are lengthier narratives or stories, and they're essentially kind of, we think, skimming over some of the sections, and they're missing some of the questions because they're not always taking the time to look through each one. So we're going to build that in more into our curriculum. We also shared, because we recognize that every teacher is a teacher of reading and writing. And so we talk about these results in our faculty meetings. And that truly is as a faculty. So in our CTE programs and even in our math a little bit, we're focusing on reading and writing strategies and writing across their curriculum where even if it's just a short reflection, the student's still writing and processing what they learned in that day. And then we're also looking at further training in collaboration with the College Board. They do provide professional training for teachers in schools to look specifically at SAT prompts, how it's designed, and strategies and practices for the classroom.
And they go over the whole scoring, and they'll help teachers with item analysis and how to go through their scores and what it is they need to bring to their classroom to improve on those scores.
So similar in math, that first bullet again, same analysis, item analysis, looking at every question, identifying the standards they're not as strong on, then looking at their curriculum and adjusting that curriculum to match that need there. Specifically with math, they created a department-wide goal, so every teacher in the math department is going to build in frequent SAT-like questions, or in some cases actual previous SAT questions. And these are short, they don't take 20 minutes, we're talking 3 to 5 minutes, regardless of what the content is, it'll relate to it, but they're getting to see that type of question, practice it in the classroom, and then get the immediate feedback from the teacher. We're also looking at training from the College Board, again, similar to the English, where they'll come in and work with the math teachers specifically on the math assessment. And then we're also reaching out to neighboring schools and districts and just trying to collaborate and possibly schedule school visits to see, as we recognize that there are other schools that are doing great work too. We want to share and collaborate with them. And then also looking at technology. Our English teachers are doing this too, but in math, we're looking at a few specific math-based software programs and how we could potentially use that to differentiate instruction, target a group of students in a lesson for a specific need as a teacher then works with other students. So appreciate Ms. Borges working together to put this together, and I look forward to moving forward on these steps.
I have one question.
Thank you very much.
I know the high school for many years now has offered additional SAT prep. Is that something that's continuing this year? Are the enrollment levels in these classes pretty steady?
It's usually offered in February, and it's a first come, first serve, because they have a limited number of seats that they have, and they usually fill up, yes. And students can either sign up for the English, math, or for both.
Okay.
And they're during the evenings. I believe they start February through March.
When is the SAT administered?
March 25th, I
Is
believe,
it?
this year,
Okay.
off the top of my head.
Okay.
And that's the state sets out
Right.
windows, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So when you look at that, just as a little side note, normally when we speak to our juniors, we always recommend that they take the SAT, obviously in their junior year. So before it was a state mandated test, we would always recommend like the June exam, because that gave them most of their junior year to learn more topics. So it being in March is kind of early in their junior year. They're missing out on those 3 months, say, of additional instruction that might have boosted them a little bit.
Would it make sense to be offering the additional help sooner?
Well, this year, the test has been in April previously. This year, the state gave you 2 choices, March 25th or during April vacation. So we had to pick the March 25th date.
Yeah.
So that's something that Mr. Ashley can absolutely talk to the 2 teachers that run the class.
In that case, yes, and in this case it does, yes.
I know in particular, the weather in those months it can take away from how much instruction can actually be given, and it's tough that it's being administered in March, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But that they obviously have to watch out because the first 2 weeks of May is the AP testing.
Oh, yeah.
And then April vacation is right in the middle of April, so I'm not sure how they picked that date.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Buck.
So I'm happy to see there wasn't a dip I thought there would be when everyone had to take it. So that's good news. And also I'm happy you have the preparation. When my children were here, it cost $1,000 to take the SAT prep course.
And
So-
we just, so you know, I don't know if you know Khan Academy.
Yeah,
We have
Khan
all
Academy.
our students.
Yeah.
So all the 10th graders took the PSAT, and then we met with them all in September and made sure they had their College Board account linked to the Khan Academy.
That's good.
And showed them exactly what Khan Academy was and how it could help them, and how it's what they get out of it. If they put into it, they could get the question of the day. There are banks of practice tests. They'll grade your essays for you, give you suggestions. They'll tailor it to you based on how you performed on your PSAT. So we do that with, so once they enter their junior year, we go over those results with them from the spring assessment.
One of the great reasons for technology.
Yes.
So my other question is, with the new graduation requirements, the SAT is one pathway, or are there also other endorsements that the students can get to graduate?
Yes, absolutely. And so this is kind of the graduation assessment requirement, then the pathways is a whole nother component to,
But if somebody doesn't reach the cut score on this SAT, they're not held back from graduating, are they?
That hasn't been
that
instituted,
has
no.
not been released
It's not a
yet.
high stake.
That's
it's
not,
a high
I know it
stakes
isn't.
exam.
I know it
No.
isn't, but by this year, by this graduating class, that was supposed to be developed so that you could get other endorsements in order to graduate if you don't meet, right?
That's in place.
That's in place.
Yeah, yes.
I want to make
CTEs,
sure.
APs,
All
right.
those other things,
Right.
because as we know, everyone doesn't show their proficiency on a test. They have other ways
Right.
to,
We have a meeting coming up about that topic, and just making sure all those pathways are.
oh, good, because I want to put that on the next agenda, Dr.
Other
Larkin.
thing, I think I heard you in there, and perhaps it's just me, I apologize, I'm tired, was that down the road very soon, and if not this year, but the first year, we have student growth percentiles based PSAT to SAT. So that
yeah.
aligns back to Dr. Larkin's point about growth over time for each individual student. So the state is not looking at, did you get X magic score? They're looking at
Growth.
What did you learn from
Growth,
Tiverton?
okay, good, that's good, okay. And at a future meeting, Dr. Lacken, I'd like that to be on in the CTE to make sure we have all the certifications we need and everything that, not next meeting, I know we already have our agenda, but one after that, because we have to make sure. Thank you so much for all this hard work, it's wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
All right.
How are you feeling? Another presentation? We good or?
Well, I think there are some things we probably may want to continue in this agenda, given that Mrs. Pavo and Mrs.
Yep.
Palish are not here.
Want to excuse our student representative?
Yes.
Thank them for coming.
Thank you very much.
Come
Okay.
back again.
We will.
If they get to go, do we get to go? Um, So, I'm going to ask for a couple motions now. We can discuss after the motions. First, maybe to continue item 14E until we have the full committee, because that's going to require a vote, and I think we all need to be here for that.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any objection on the part of Dr. Sanquioni or Mr. Ashley?
No.
Continuing 14.
D, Capital?
No, 14E, High School Handbook.
Oh, I'm sorry. E, how you doing with that?
Yeah, I was ready to speak to it tonight, but I recognize the committee wants to have all the members. So.
Yeah. So, okay. All those in favor? And I'm going to ask for a motion to remove item 14F.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And now we are left with C and D, really.
Just as a reminder, we skipped over 12.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that as well. And again, I think that's, as a policy, I'd make a motion to continue that as well.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All right. That was marvelous work on the part of the committee. So, it is the hour is 9:05. Do you want to continue? I think we can do D, 14D. Do you want to go into 14C as well?
That
I
is
think
a-
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's your prerogative, how you feel about that?
Um,
It's an important presentation, so if you felt it,
It is important.
So why don't we make a motion and then we can make a discussion, we
Okay.
have a discussion. So make a motion to continue?
Make a motion, yeah.
Okay. So for discussion, what do you think about continuing that?
It is very important. My question to you, Dr. Sanquioni, is it necessary for us to go through this tonight?
Well, it depends how you, I guess we define necessary, if I could,
We're not
you bring up
voting.
that flyer?
We're not voting on it, so you can proceed as you see fit
Right,
as
so I just wanna
the
show you one bit of
district
data.
leader.
This was a trial, we wanted to present this to the school committee first, because we are gonna do the exact replica of this presentation 3 other times, and all 3 of them will actually take place prior
To our next meeting.
to your next meeting. So just know that when we come back from the vacation, the break we're on now, on that Tuesday evening, we'll be doing this presentation at the high school in the auditorium. On that Thursday, we'll be doing a morning presentation at the town library, and then the following Monday, which is before the next school committee meeting, we'll be doing this presentation at the middle school auditorium. So again, we need to have our parents invested in this program, and we want to educate them about it. So if you're fine with us going forward with those 3 presentations, we'll certainly do it again on the 10th.
I think it actually is a great idea if for us to continue it. It gives parents a 4th opportunity to see the presentation
Mhm.
at our meeting.
Sure, if that's your prerogative.
Okay, so the motion's on the floor. I am more than happy to leave us in your competent hands with regard to this issue until we take it up again in December.
Okay.
All those in favor? All right. 14D, updated capital spending. I think we can probably dispense with that tonight.
I think so.
Sure. And that is just updating the committee. This is nothing you haven't seen already.
Right.
Find it. I don't know if you're gonna bring that up, but you have that in your packet there. It's just 3 columns. We are approved for $212,309 dollars for capital. That was appropriated from the town. Excuse me. We have another number of initiatives that we were taking place this year, and I just wanted to show to you that all the initiatives that you had approved for us to take place have either been completed or the work. The last thing is the 4 bathrooms, 2 at the middle school, 2 at the high school, and the construction on those is actually beginning on December 23rd. So again, we're tracking a little bit below what we were allocated, which is positive, but all the work is being completed.
So everything seemed to come under budget with the exception of the paper cut software, which was way over budget. Again, the absolute numbers were not gigantic, but some reason why do we have any reason why that happened?
There was a different cost to the installation of the fob devices that we did put in, that increased the cost on that.
Right. So, let me give some detail on that. We weren't planning on putting fobs at which schools, the elementary?
Talk about that in another
Right,
meeting.
and so because we had the budget amount to do that, we are now putting them there and potentially here at the high school, another one system?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so the details behind that are positive. It's more money, but for a lot more work.
Okay.
And how long do you feel those bathroom renovations are going to take once started?
Completion date was, what was it, first week of March, mid-March? Mid-March.
Wow. It's a long time.
Is that before basketball playoffs?
Probably not. No.
Close.
No, spring sports start March 17th, so.
Will there be public facilities available during the basketball season?
Yes.
At each school?
Yes.
Okay. That is my only concern. I know the gyms are very busy.
Different bathrooms. if you want to keep it.
Difference, fine, as long as there's something available, because I know the gyms are hopping places.
Okay. Any other questions about that?
No, just to clarify that this is monies that were allocated by the town specifically for our capital needs
Yep.
this year. Yep.
This was all from the budget? No, none of this stuff was from our fund
No.
balance? I guess it
This
wasn't.
is all-
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. And then we are on too many windows open is what we are on. I know. Okay, so we're on announcements, scheduled meetings, reports. Mrs. Black wanted to report back to us on the health and wellness meeting. Mrs. Black.
I'll be very quick, I know. Okay, so we had our meeting, and I gave you 2 an agenda. And if you look at 3D, it's Town Farm Recreation Center. The town, some people in town are applying for a grant for Town Farm, and it's very exciting because it's not just for the kids. There's going to be an adult portion, and they're going to have pickleball. You can all go home and look that up. They're going to have pickleball there. And so they're applying for the grant, so they wanted endorsements. So the Health and Wellness Committee gave a consensus, and the Tiverton Prevention gave a consensus. So they're going to write a letter of support to the people writing the grant. It's due in December. So let's hope that goes through, because that'll be great for the community.
If I don't want it, look it up. Can you tell me what pickleball is?
It's like, they said there were, a
You
man was
watched
having
last night's town
a big
council.
party at his house, and
I
it-
don't
and
watch
it
town council
rained.
anymore.
So he tried to
Too
figure
upset.
out what to do with all his kids, because it was raining, and he made this game. It's like tennis, but it's much slower. And you do it
Well,
on,
that sounds good.
you do it on tennis courts, and so a lot of people. Yeah. Yeah, it's really very, very interesting.
Huh.
Okay, so that's.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So that was the news on that one, the Health and Wellness meeting. Thank you.
So wait, do you need a separate court, or can you just use a
No, they're
tennis
going to
court?
use part of the tennis courts for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next meeting I'll tell you guys what futsal is. All right. So, thank you, Mrs. Black. December 10th meeting, which we just packed full of more things.
Well, the good thing is the cybersecurity was covered tonight.
Yes.
And some of those other things, some things there we can adjust. We just don't
Yeah.
do the one-to-one.
Yeah. Well, some of
Some don't
that's-
look like they'll all be that
Yeah, they're not
long.
as
No.
they're not as intensive as.
We'll
some
be
of the
looking
things we
forward
talked
to
about.
our first presentation from Ms. Roderick.
Yes. So toward that end, one of the things on there is a budget workshop. As I'm sure everybody in the committee remembers, we spent Saturday mornings a couple times last year having a budget workshop with Dr. Sanchioni and the committee members. And I was thinking we probably need to do that and start to thinking about it even a little bit sooner, especially as we will want to be looking at our FY, the finals on our FY19 budget, the audit, and sort of what we're gonna be, FY20. So we're creating the budget for FY21, correct? Right. So you didn't really want to go Christmas shopping. What would you like to? Which Saturday?
Oh, are you kidding me? No, I'm
So,
available.
Anyway, I was
Just let me
gonna
know.
try and find a date in December where we could do this. It doesn't necessarily need to be a Saturday morning or even a Sunday morning, but I think right now we are only scheduled to have one meeting in December, and I think that we need to have a meeting where we can focus specifically on the budget without anything else, sometime in December. That's what I really wanted to say.
Okay, that'll be good. Just let me know.
Is there any disagreement?
Nope, that's a good idea.
There is no disagreement. I will tell you
So
that
then
the
what are
first
good
week of December,
days?
we have 2 subcommittee meetings already.
Policy subcommittee means?
Policy and finance, both.
I'm not on either of those, so that's
No.
okay.
It's okay. Then we have the meeting on the 10th, and so the third week, we're starting to really kick into the Christmas season.
It helps to look at the right month, right? So, well,
I think there's also the possibility that we may be getting a call from the Budget Committee asking to have a joint session sometime before the end of the year as well.
so that has to happen. Do you remember what this
Has to happen
It
by
has
the
to
first
has
week of
to
January.
happen.
Yeah.
What's the date that it has to happen by the first
January
week of Jan-
7th, I think,
Yeah.
or something like
It's
that.
a state law.
I think it's just the charter.
Well, we could try and add a meeting on the 17th. We could add a meeting on the 19th.
The 19th is the band concert.
Okay. The 16th, 12th. Do you want to try for a Saturday? Do you want to try for a Sunday? Could talk about the Baltimore Catechism.
Yeah.
December 7th and 14th, I'm not available which are Saturdays, but I could do the respective Sundays.
Okay.
And then anytime during the week of, any given week is fine. Anytime of the evening.
No Wednesday nights. How does the 19th sound?
Is that a Sunday?
That's-
Thursday.
Oh.
Can't do the 19th. Can you do?
What about that Monday?
The 16th.
Yes.
Amy? Yes? Amy?
I'm not sure.
No, actually, you were the first Amy. You're the second Amy. Yes?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I have to check
Oh,
the
okay.
article.
What did we say, the 16th?
That's Monday.
Sally?
Yeah.
You can do the 12th, 16th?
Yes.
Can I suggest you just send out an email to everyone and?
Yeah, no, I know, but, all right. So we'll tentatively say that the 16th. And then if the budget committee wants to meet, we could even do that night, because that's usually we could do that at 6, and then the town council can go on their way. Because it has to be all 3 of us, right?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay. Do I have my announcements now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So congratulations to the Tiverton High School teachers. They won the chemistry grants. That was good news. Also, the Pecasset School Care Bear teachers got in the field memo of the commissioner. That was very exciting. And of course, we all know the girls won the soccer, and they'll be here on the 10th, right?
Yep.
And then the boys had an awesome season with their football. We're just doing so much fun. We're doing fabulous. That's why Tiger came. He had to come tonight because he goes to all the games. Next week, the next meeting, the big one will be here for the girls. He's coming out of retirement. Okay? Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
I'll be really impressed when you get a live one.
Working on it.
You got to up your game.
I try. Thank you,
All
everyone.
right. I'm going to ask for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?